I know that some in our audience know the finer points of hockey.
The Chris Johnston Show.
We are your friends.
The biggest stories, bringing you inside the game.
What did you hear?
The Chris Johnston Show. Powered by Sports Interaction. Wanna bet?
What is going on?
Here's Chris with your host, Julian McKenzie.
Part of the game.
We finally made it, the final episode of 2022 of the Chris Johnston Show. There's a lot I want to get to. I want to make this a year in review show where we look back on some of the best things, some of the most notable things of 2022. We are going to play the movie game. So thank you to everyone on Discord who submitted movie titles for us to play. But before we do that, what are you looking forward to the most? Whether it's like a particular goal or some event or something to do with your work for 2023. I don't know about you, but I feel optimistic. I feel pretty good about next year. I can't explain it, but I just have this good feeling about next year. I'm curious about how you feel about it.
Well, you don't have to explain it, man. I would hope that every year you start with some optimism. I mean, for me, this is always such a renewing time. I think that every year should start with optimism. We know the reality, of course, everyone's going to have their ups and downs in any given 365-day window. But, you know, this is a time to turn the page and have some hope. You know, I think we talked about this last year at New Year's. You know, I usually like to do some goals. I haven't gotten around to it yet, so I don't have anything tangible to share with you. But I would say in general, I think that great things are ahead. Personally, professionally, you know, it feels to me like the NHL is in a great position. I'm sure we can touch on that a little bit as we break into the year that was and look forward a little bit, Julian. But yeah, I think this is a good time to just sort of pause and reflect and set your mind straight and you know, keep plowing forward.
Yeah, I have a list of goals. I'm not going to share. I don't know if I could share all of them. I have a lot of personal stuff, I guess. But like I do also like the idea of just like renewing and having things be fresh for a new year. And while you're saying it, you're right. I don't need to explain why I feel positive about the new year coming. It's just, I guess the last few years, I kept looking at the changing of a new year with some sort of question. Like I have no idea what to expect, or like, I don't know. And maybe it wasn't necessarily the most positive way of thinking, but for whatever reason this year, just, I don't know if it has to do with the current environment that I'm in or the job that I'm in or how I'm feeling. I just feel very like, all right, bring it on. Like, let's do it. What else am I going to see? What else am I going to take on? Maybe it does have something to do with the job, considering that like everything is so new.
Well, last year, I'm guessing when the calendar switched to January 2022, you would never have guessed you'd be sitting in Calgary, you know, covering the Flames. I'm sure a lot of other things have gone on in your life, but that's a big change, right? And you've done a really good job with it. And so you should feel a little more confidence that you can handle the things that will come. I mean, we can do hard things. I think that's something I try to remind myself of when you go through difficult periods, struggling in any way. I mean, it's you know, we can all push through and find our way to the other side. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear you're optimistic, man. It's funny when you get a little older, and I know I'm just ticking off the bingo card of our show by even going there is like, for me, the years become a little bit less about like accomplishing tangible things. I mean, it's not to say I don't have goals. But you know, for me, it's a lot more appreciating the moment and really trying not to rush through everything. You know, I think that it's natural when you're younger, you really want to get somewhere and you know, it passes fast. And so I think for me, a lot of it is just trying to find the gratitude in each day. I'm still doing, you know, my run every day. Part of that is the physical aspect, but part of that is just like stopping to reflect and doing something good for my health each day. And so you're probably trying to speed things up, and you want to cover this event and do this thing and, you know, buy this thing, make this money, whatever it might be, you know, but you get to my stage and I'm just trying to really smell the roses and enjoy it. Cause I realize, you know, I'm really lucky to be in the position I'm in.
Is this the most wholesome start to our podcast we've ever had?
It could be. I mean, we're either serious with news of the day or usually kind of goofy from, you know, now and again, where we just opened this one, just cut a vein open and started speaking from the heart today.
Yeah, I think that's what it feels like. Well, I will try my absolute best to get us back on track, though. We will get to sports interaction for the last time this year. But just to give a little taste for what I'm thinking for the year in review portion of the show, I'm thinking we look back. I mean, I'm going to mention some categories and you, to your best of your ability, just give me your picks for them. So, like, I thought about if we talked about what we felt was like the play of the year or the story of the year and maybe even the CJ Show episode of the year, a prediction for 2023, something you'd like to see in 2023. And since normally the last episode of the week that we normally do a stick tap. How about a stick tap for the year? Like, who deserves the biggest stick tap of all for 2022? What about those characters? What about those categories? What do you think?
I like them. It's really hard for me, honestly, to like, it's hard to see the whole year, right? We're so, you like get engrossed in the moment. It's hard to think back, but I think it's a good exercise, and I'll give you my best for each of those ones.
All right, so let's get to sports interaction first, and then we will get to the year in review on the CJ Show.
You can bet that with David Bastel. Brought to you by Sports Interaction. Get in the action and make a play. 19 plus. Please play responsibly.
Welcome to You Can Bet That. Remember to hit up sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all of your gaming needs. I'm sure those who are listening or watching the show have seen quite a bit of Connor Bedard at the World Juniors. And of course, Sports Interaction has the odds on who will likely draft him in 2023. Of the betting leader right now, Chicago at plus 388, Anaheim in second at 399, and Columbus in third place at plus 556.
It's going to be a race to the bottom, isn't it? I mean, this guy's lighting up the World Junior Tournament. He's already lit up the under 18 tournament for Team Canada in the past. The Western Hockey League has been put on notice by him. I mean, I think it's fair to say, quite honestly, and it's kind of crazy because Connor Bedard's not even 18 yet, but I think he could play in the NHL right now. I mean, it's not to race ahead too far, but certainly I think any of those teams you're mentioning there, I look at also the Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, even Vancouver. I know there's fans at least in Vancouver. I'm not sure the organization is gearing up for him, but there's a compelling reason right now to lose games and give yourself the best lottery odds, because this guy looks like a special player, and you know, I think the hype train has left the station now.
By the way, Vancouver at plus 800, both Ottawa and Montreal at plus 1,000 if you want to pick one of those three teams as the winner of the Connor Bedard sweepstakes.
Hey, Montreal, it's unlikely, but they own 2 first-round picks. They have Florida's unprotected first. I'm not predicting that Florida will stay out of the playoffs, but if they were to crater, Montreal's got 2 tickets in the lottery.
Oh, yeah, and I know fans have been excited about the fact that those tickets look better and better every day, considering the performance of the Florida Panthers this year, who last I checked, I don't think are in a playoff spot right now. They're not having as good of a year as they would like compared to last year.
No, they're actually in the bottom 11, which is significant because you can only move up a maximum of 10 spots by winning the lottery. So it's only among the bottom 11 teams at the end of the season that even have a shot at winning the Connor Bedard lottery.
All right. Well, we'll be monitoring those sweepstakes as we go along this year. Again, remember to hit up sportsinteraction.com/SDPN for all of your gaming needs and for the best odds, before game, in game, and the best props. sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. All right, Siege, it's time to look back at the year 2022. 5 different categories, 5 different options for us to look back at the year that it was. I can't wait to hear what your picks are for each of these. And I'll try my best to come up with some stuff too. And maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it'll differ a little bit, but this could be a very fun exercise.
Yeah, well, I mean, it already has been. Since you suggested in the group chat, I've had to really start wrapping my brain. It's so weird, right? Because the calendar year doesn't overlap with the hockey season. And so it's sort of hard to draw a line midway through one to midway through the next. But I think we're going to give it our best shot here.
Last year when we did this, I think we did it as an award show. The Johnstons or the CJs. I figured it was for the best we scrapped that idea.
Well, we got to try new things, right? I mean, we don't want to get too stale.
No, I don't think we need to get too stale. And maybe it'll resurface in some other way. But I think we're good with the year in review show. Let's start with play of the year. It could be a really sick goal. It could be a really sick assist. It could be any play you deem to be the play of the year. CJ, your play of the year is?
So here's the deal. I'm going to show my work on this one because
Sure.
It's hard to remember every goal, right? So I was back looking through Connor McDavid highlights. I was looking through Connor Bedard highlights. The Travis Zegras moments come to mind as potential plays of the year. And so, there's obviously lots of things that tick those boxes. But then I thought about it as like, this should be a play that I remember, like that it's so dazzling or important that I'm like, whoa. And I actually centered on two. Both from the same team, both during the same playoff drive. And I don't know who to give the number one spot to, so I'll just mention both. One is a goal by Nathan McKinnon in the playoffs against St. Louis, where he goes end to end in a wild game. It completed a hat trick and I just remember watching that and it was like, wow. Like it was a legit wow moment for me. And because it was in the playoffs, because it was part of a run that ultimately produced the cup, I thought that something like that could be worthy of it. The other one that jumped to mind actually was Nazem Kadri's overtime goal in Tampa when he came back with like a busted hand and I don't even know how he played, could barely take faceoffs and somehow gets in alone and scores in overtime. And I just thought what a moment it was. I don't know if it was maybe the best individual play, but it was certainly maybe one of my favorite hockey moments, if not the favorite hockey moment of the year. But I think I'm going to give my play of the year to Nathan McKinnon. This is a highly subjective category. But that goal he scored against St. Louis is unbelievable. And if you haven't seen it, or if your memory has lapsed on it, I would highly suggest you give it a YouTube right now.
That goal should have stood as the series clinching goal. And I'm still mad that it isn't, because that goal literally got me out of my seat. It's one of the most incredible moments in that Stanley Cup postseason, which was pretty incredible to follow that Colorado Avalanche run. I don't know if for people who don't remember, the Blues came back after that goal and won it in overtime. I believe Tyler Bozak was the OT hero. And then we had to wait, I think, until the next game for Darren Helm to win it for the Colorado Avalanche. But I also love the Nazem Kadri mention because of what he was going through throughout that postseason. And for him to come back and score that OT winner, that is that was the postseason of Nas for all we're concerned, even though he didn't win the Conn Smythe. Like that was the culmination of everything he had endured in the last little while. And then for him to score that goal on a busted hand, like that was really cool. That was really cool.
I love playoff moments. I've been so lucky to cover so many playoff games, and eventually a lot of the details blend together, but it's the moments that stick out, right? Like I think of Steven Stamkos on his fifth shift in the bubble scoring against Dallas in the Stanley Cup final. That's a great moment. Like that year, if we were doing plays of the year, that would probably be my play of the year. Like I think that the goals that sort of mix the drama of the moment, the individual skill required, and just something that kind of implants in my brain. That's kind of how I define this one. And so that's why I'm giving it to McKinnon, even though it ultimately isn't a loss. It was just part of a tremendous postseason for him too.
Then I will give it to Kadri for his goal in the Cup final, but I will give an honorable mention to Trevor Zegras doing the lacrosse style goal against the Montreal Canadiens in early January. And the funny thing is that before that goal happened, Jake Evans for the Canadiens had scored a pretty nice, I think it was a give and go. And as that goal happened, like we're in the afterglow of that, you could see everyone in the press box just like looking down on their laptops or phones to tweet about how nice the goal was. And literally, like instantaneously, Trevor Zegras is going down the ice and doing the lacrosse style goal. So nearly almost everyone who was in that building almost missed that goal because we were so enamored by another play that happened. But I don't think people recognize that. We just see the highlight now, but like we almost missed the Trevor Zegras goal because a pretty sweet goal had happened just before it, but we're always going to remember Trevor Zegras looping around the net and then scoring on Sam Montembeault. Like that was pretty sweet. That was a couple weeks after the dish again, obviously, but that's deserving of an honorable mention as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you've identified why I don't tweet too much during games these days. I think it's best because it's so easy to get engrossed in a conversation or what people are saying, but it's easy to miss things too if you're tweeting. And that's not when you're a fan at home. I get it because you're on your couch and you're not worried about writing a story or anything else. But when you're covering the game, don't tweet too often.
Advice from one Chris Johnston. Okay, let's get to story of the year. I feel like there's one answer for this, but I'd like to know if we differ. I don't think we will, but I'd like to know your pick for story of the year.
Well, why don't you start then?
Well, I mean, I don't think it gets any bigger than the Hockey Canada investigation. I think while it is an ongoing story, I can understand we still need to, we still don't necessarily know the ending of that story. But I think the fact that the hockey world has been, it's weird to say captured, but the fact that so much attention has been put on it and people don't want that story to go away. And I feel we've done a decent job at ensuring that that story doesn't go away whenever we have the opportunity to talk about it on the CJ show. I think at a different time, maybe people sweep this under the rug or we don't talk about it. But I think the fact that it's an unfortunate story, it's something that has really ripped open the underbelly that is Hockey Canada, and we look at that federation in a completely different light. It has affected how so many people watch the World Juniors. It has affected how people just view the federation as a whole and the people who are a part of it, people watching parliamentary hearings as well. There are so many aspects of this story that, for me, make it the story of the year. And I get it's not necessarily like a positive one, but I can't help but think that this should be worthy of that category, even if it is still ongoing. And maybe depending on how things go into 2023 and what is revealed, it could still be the story of that year with what we end up knowing. But I think for 2022, it's definitely the biggest hockey story to discuss.
Yeah, it's definitely the newsiest in Canadian sports too, because it's actually gone into other sporting federations. You know, that this still is ongoing in that sense too. That a lot of other sporting organizations have come under scrutiny because of it. I think because of the stature Hockey Canada holds in the hockey world, but also in the country, when you have the senior leadership shipped out, an entirely new board installed, and to have it play out over several months and quite publicly, it's hard to contest your characterization of it being the newsiest thing to happen this year. It's too bad you're not. I mean, maybe it's a little bit if it bleeds, it leads of us that we're not identifying more positive stories, but I mean that you can't really get around the fact that that's probably the biggest single development that I can think of happening in the calendar year.
Yeah. Okay. So we're both in agreement for story of the year here.
Yeah. I mean, how could I push back against that? I mean, I think that there are nice stories too, right? Things, even for me, and I'm certainly not saying this rivals what happened to Hockey Canada, but just that scoring has returned to the NHL in a meaningful way. Like, I think it's maybe not story of the year, but it might be like under discussed, underappreciated story of the year. Maybe like that this trend has come back. I think we see the manifestation of it when we might celebrate certain players, but I wouldn't have had this pegged. You know, it was years and years and years of sort of, if you have a chart, it was going the wrong way. Goals per game in the NHL and defensive play, goaltenders, and the fact that spiked back up again. That maybe not true story of the year, but I think it's like a trend of the year, maybe. So maybe that might be the best way to term it. And I think it comes with all sorts of great things for the NHL. And I don't see it reversing course too quickly either, because you just see the individual skill, even watching this World Junior tournament, even watching Connor Bedard, you know that there's more great players coming. And I think it's a great spot for the league to be in, having that be the way the game's played now.
Gotta say, before we get to that next topic, the fact that the state of goaltending is where it is, and the fact that Connor Bedard is about to enter the league could be a perfect storm considering his offensive abilities. Like, am I tripping on that? Like, I feel as if we could see someone take this league by storm in a way we haven't seen since like McDavid coming in or Crosby coming in. Like that we could be in for they could benefit a guy like Connor Bedard coming in.
Yeah, because he has an NHL release on his shot. So even though he's going to have other areas of his game to grow into, starting with his body, just physically, I'm sure he's going to, go through growth as any player does from 17, 18 to 20, 21, 25. He's got a shot that I mean, that's what I'm saying. He could play in the league right now, I think, and he could score goals. I'm not saying he's going to lead the league in scoring as a rookie or anything like that, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, Austin Matthews had 40 as a rookie. I've seen a lot of people compare Connor Bedard's shot to Austin Matthews, just the way he can drag and release the puck and disguise the point it's coming off on the goaltenders. We saw him totally freeze the Austrian goaltender with one of the goals he scored, against him. And so, I'm with you. I wouldn't I think the sky's the limit for that player, but even maybe as soon as his 18-year-old season. I mean, he only turns 18 in July. So he's going to be young entering the league. Even it's not just that he's a rookie, just being born in the second half of the year. But look what he's already done. He could be in the next 2 World Junior tournaments, like from an eligibility standpoint. Like that's nuts. We know he won't be at either of them because he's going to be playing in the NHL by that point in time. But he's not. Yeah, I'm gushing a little bit, but it's hard not to be impressed by him when you watch what he's done these last few games of the World Junior tournament.
You could technically say he's an honorable mention for the story of the year. So for the story of the year category, the Mitchell Miller Boston Bruins debacle as well could be one. The Vancouver Canucks, you could just put Vancouver Canucks as honorable mention because they just have too many different things going on at once. And it just kind of all comes together for an honorable mention, essentially. But yeah, there's definitely a ton of different ways we could have gone with that category. But Hockey Canada, story of the year for us. How about the episode of the year? Your favorite episode that took place in 2022. My pick is the very first time we were introduced to sunglasses, CJ.
Oh, yeah. Was that the day after the trade deadline?
I was, I want to say it's definitely around that time. It was with the episode I'm thinking of specifically.
I think that might have been the That's Ridic episode, actually.
So I think that That's Ridic came, unless I have it wrong, I think that came after that, like right after that one. Because like that was like you have it was like in the thumbnail, you have the sunglasses and you're clearly like trying to be like you were doing like the head bobbing and whatever. Like that was like around the trade deadline. We were talking about the fact that Evgeny Dadonov was supposed to be dealt to Anaheim and that got nixed, but there were so many other things that went in. But like that is like that it's got a lot of views too. Like that was very much like us going off the rails. Like that for me stands out as like why that's one of the biggest reasons why I love doing this show. Because
I'm almost certain that we did that the morning after the trade deadline and I was just like loopy.
That's probably what happened.
It's funny because I'm stealing myself for that period right now. Like, and I'm sure you feel it too, but January and February into the trade deadline is just a nutso work time. Like, I got a lot of jobs and all the demands at all the jobs go up as that date gets closer. And obviously there's a lot that goes on, trying to keep in track, keeping on top of the stories, everything, being in studio at TSN for like 12 hours in a row on TV. It's just like it's a crazy time. I love it. It's not a complaint, but it is crazy. And so when you get to the other side of it, I think that's what produced that episode. My favorite might've been our summer catch-up episode, actually. Because obviously we get in the rhythm of doing it during the season. Like we just do this twice a week. Like it feels so normal and regular. And I'm not going to say that we don't put a lot of thought into it, but sometimes we literally just like hit record and start going with a loose rundown and make the show. But it felt weird to take that break in the summer. I don't know if it was 6 weeks maybe between episodes. And then we did the one catch up and, there's a lot to talk about. It was a busy summer and it was just kind of cool to get back to doing what we do. And a whole bunch of people watched, even though we were talking about hockey in August. So that's one that stands out in my mind. But honestly, I have fun every time we do this. It's like, one of the highlights of my week every week whenever we get in front of the microphone. So, it's hard to pick just one. It's like your children. You love them all in a different way.
So I think that one, so Flamethrower and Story of Sandine, those are the titles of the 2 catch-up ones, and then we did an episode about me moving to Calgary.
Right.
But those 2 in particular, like those definitely stand out. And also for the one I picked, yes, it was immediately after the trade deadline had passed. So you were definitely on one that day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna do something similar again. I mean, this year it's different. It's the trade deadline's on Friday rather.
Yes.
So I don't know if we'll be doing an episode that Saturday. I mean, let's just stay where our feet are right now. We'll figure that out as we get closer. But
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, if we happen to do one literally the next day after the trade deadline again, I'm sure my brain is going to be in 1,000 pieces.
Something you'd like to see in 2023.
This will not be what you're expecting, I don't think, but I really want to see tangible progress and something locked in for best on best in 2023. Like when having just come through the Soccer World Cup, and, as I'm a self-professed, not the world's biggest soccer fan, like I watched a ton of those games. Like it was so entertaining. I know it's a little apples to oranges with what we'll get if there is a Hockey World Cup. It's not the same stage. But I really think that we need this. Like it's getting to the point where it's like almost ridiculous. Right. And we've been over all the reasons why it's happened this way, but if I could have a wish for 2023, I don't have to, I think the game's in a good spot. I think the league's in a good spot. I think even a team like the Ottawa Senators being for sale, like that's going to sort of take care of itself. But if there's one wish I could put out there, is that I just hope that we see tangible progress towards a tournament of best on best. I just think the players want it. I think the fans will lap it up. And I think it's just good, creates good buzz for the sport. I mean, it gives us something to talk about, right? It's 6 months of, will this player be on this team and all that kind of, discussion. And I think that that's healthy for the league too. And so let's hope that this will be a year where something positive happens in that regard, because it feels like every year it's like, oh, this could happen. And it's like, oh, push it back a year or 2 or 3 or whatever.
The coolest thing about watching the FIFA World Cup, whether it's the men's, and I think to a certain extent the women's World Cup gets a bit of this too. It's fun seeing people who wouldn't normally care about soccer get into the sport and then be all about cheering for whichever country they want to cheer for, especially if the women are involved. People are going to go in for Canada. This is the first time in my lifetime I could say I watched the men's team from Canada at a World Cup, and I try my absolute best to get behind it. If we get a best on best back in our lives, whether it's back at the Olympics or back at the World Cup, what can the hockey world do to try to recreate that sort of magic? It can't obviously be on that same level or floor as soccer because of how global that game is. But I do hope that we, as the hockey world, but also people who are adjacent to it, who are not as into the sport, they find a way to feel as excited about it too. Because I feel that should be the biggest point of having that best on best.
Right. But it can't be contrived, right? Like it has to be somewhat organic. I think the way you get there is, there's probably need 3 or 4 elements. One would be knowing it's going to happen every 4 years or on a regular schedule. Because that helps, there's a story from one to the next to the next. It starts building its own kind of narrative and momentum that way. So I think that's essential. At some point it'd be nice if there was sort of qualifying tournaments and the like that lead up to it. That might be a little ambitious right out of the gate here. And let's be truthful. There's not a depth of pool that necessitates that. I mean, really, you're talking about having qualifying spots for maybe the 9th and 10th teams or the 7th and 8th teams, depending how big the field ends up being. But I think that could help generate more discussion about it, in the interim between tournaments. And then I think you just got to let it happen. I mean, someone's going to win the next one, right? Someone's going to lose it. Someone's going to be disappointed. It's going to be held in someone's country. It might be someone's last time wearing the national team jersey. Like all those stories, I think, take care of themselves and build compelling reasons to tune in and to watch. I don't think anything in the short term is going to rival the Olympics for men's hockey. I think that should also be part of what needs to happen. 2026 is the next Winter Games, and I would hope that the NHL players are there. But I think it's just got to happen regularly. And we were in a pretty sweet window earlier in my career. Like it was fun to cover the lead up to the 2010 Olympics and then, into 2014 in Sochi. And with Russia hosting a tournament and the pride that they have in the game, obviously Canada on home ice in Vancouver. I mean, I just think it will happen. If you build it, they will come, Julian. They've got to build it. And that's my wish for 2023 is just that there's some framework put in place where this is going to happen. I know there won't be a tournament in that year, in the next calendar year, but hopefully not too far beyond.
My wish for 2023 is for Connor McDavid to score 70 goals. That has not been done since the early 90s. I was not alive, unless I'm wrong, the last time an NHL player scored over 70 goals in an NHL season. Connor McDavid, as we're recording this, has 31 in 36 games. He could be, I mean, we were talking about how last year he was playing his best hockey. He could double down on that and play his best season this year. And it might be enough for him to sweep everything. And if it means he's going to score 70 goals this year, we could be in for one of the best offensive seasons by an individual player in a long time. We talk about Connor Bedard benefiting from how the quality of goaltending has gone down. There might not be any bigger beneficiary than one Connor McDavid, the best player in the world at this given moment in time, just getting himself to a completely different level. I know there are people out there who look at Connor McDavid and they look at other playoff players and they say, you know what? I don't really feel to start my playoff team with Connor McDavid. There are 5 other people who I would rather start my team with. Yes, I'm directing this at someone in particular, John Scott, but Connor McDavid is the best player in the world. And you look a little weird if you leave him off your team because he's playing at the level that he's playing. And he has shown that he can do it in the postseason, coming off a brilliant postseason run where I was asking you on the show if he could get Conn Smythe votes. I want to see Connor McDavid reach a completely different level in 2023 to the point where we're looking at him and he's like, wow, like 70 goals? Shoot, let's forget about getting him to 1,000 points, 2,000 points. When does he get to that? Connor McDavid scoring 70 goals is my wish.
Oh, he could get 150 points too. I mean, I don't think that's been done since Gretzky or Lemieux, basically. Yeah, we might be watching something really, I mean, we're definitely watching something special. I guess we're gauging how special it is, right? I mean, we know it's special and unique and rare, just how great he's been from the moment he entered the league, how prolific he's been, but the fact he keeps finding new levels and hasn't evidently hit his ceiling yet. Let's see how far he can take it.
All right, so we've done play of the year, story of the year, episode of the year, something you'd like to see in 2023. We normally do stick taps on the last episode of the week, for the week. How about stick tap of the year? So we give it to someone who, maybe they didn't necessarily have to have already had a stick tap, but somebody who you think is deserving of a stick tap for the year. Do you want to start or should I start?
I can start. There's so many ways you can go in this one. I like that you didn't even introduce the possibility of a cross-check of the year too, even though we've now added that to the.
Yeah, I mean, we could have done that, but we still could if you want to, but I'm not going to go there.
But my stick tap, and he definitely has got one before, is to the Flames assistant general manager, Chris Snow. I know we've talked a fair bit about Chris and his battle with ALS and his family's willingness to share it. And as we close out a year, he's just kind of on my mind, seeing, the updates his wife Kelsey provides on Twitter, the fact he's, survived, been put on a ventilator over the holidays, was able to get home, but still very much, in a difficult spot. I just give my stick tap to him and his family, the Flames organization, and everyone that knows Chris. Not a whole lot to say different than in the past, but he's still very much on my mind. And I think it's worth celebrating that he's found his way through another year because, his original diagnosis, didn't have him getting this far. And, I know he's still there battling for his family.
I like that stick tap. Chris Snow is on my mind too. Just someone who has meant a lot to the Flames organization, has been an instrumental part of the front office there, and seeing the updates from his wife, definitely, at least the positive ones where he's off the ventilator or he's with his family for the holidays. Those were welcome sights to see. So yes, I'm fully in endorsement of Chris Snow getting a stick tap for the year. Yes, absolutely. I would like to give mine to Herb Carnegie and the Carnegie family. Herb Carnegie going into the Hockey Hall of Fame this year. The first Black star in hockey, even though it did not culminate into an NHL career. We've already kind of outlined some of the different racism and challenges that Herb has endured when we gave him a stick tap a couple months back. But to see that the hockey world finally acknowledge him as a Hall of Famer, as he deserves to be, and knowing that his family is continuing his legacy with things like the Carnegie Initiative, that is really cool to see. There are moments where sometimes, as a person of color in hockey, I wonder, if it will ever get to a point where it will be truly inclusive and truly welcoming for people who don't look white. But knowing that Herb Carnegie and people like him have made their way to make it a much more inclusive space, the sport of hockey, I mean, that gives me hope. That gives a lot of people hope, and it means a lot for people of all hues around the hockey world. So I think for the Carnegie family to be present at the Hockey Hall of Fame induction ceremony, and for Herb, even though he's no longer with us, for him to get his moment, I think that was really special, and it has a lot of meaning, and I think he is deserving of a stick tap from me. So yeah, I like the stick taps and the direction that we went with both for stick taps of the year. And that's pretty much going to do it for the year in review portion of our show, CJ. This was good. This was a great exercise.
It was good. I'm ready to turn the page, though. I got to be honest. I'm ready to write a new chapter.
Yeah, me too. But we can't turn that new chapter until we play the movie game for the last time in 2022. Hey, that's why you were so hushed voice when you said you're ready to turn a chapter, because you knew once we got to finishing the stick tap of the year, it's like, all right, I got to get through this.
Yeah, this is where James Myrtle can turn off, because I know that he gets so mad at me not knowing these movies. So James, thanks for listening. Have a great New Year's Eve. And I know you won't be listening to this next segment.
For those who are not familiar with the movie game, CJ does not have a lot of time to watch movies. That means he has not seen many movies. What we do is we name the title of a movie, and CJ has to guess the description of that, not description, but the synopsis, the plot of that movie. And we try to go along whatever's written on imdb.com. If he's relatively close to what it is, you can give him a point. But the point of this is for him to,
I don't think I've ever been close on anything.
I don't think you've been close when we did when we've played this game. So we'll
I remember
see
you
how
gave me
this
Shawshank
goes.
Redemption and just couldn't believe I didn't know what it was. So I mean, I know that
I thought that would have been a gimme.
Anyways,
all right,
let's get this over with.
Thank you to everyone on Discord who submitted different movie titles. I'll go through a small handful of them here. One from 5 Second Pose. Bone Cop, Bad Cop.
Did you say Bone Cop?
Yeah, Bone Cop. Like, in the French word for good is bon. Bone
I know
Cop.
that can't be a real. That can't be a real movie.
Bone Cop, Bad Cop? You don't think that's a real movie?
No.
What?
But if it was a real movie, it would be about two police partners who one can't tell the truth and one can't lie. And they have to navigate the world trying to overcome the difficulties that come with that imposition.
CJ, I'm going to be really honest with you. When you said two cops, my heart was about to jump out of its chest because I thought you were going to be so close. And then you said whatever the hell you just said. And I was like, oh my God. Bone Cop, Bad Cop. Probably one of the best Quebec movies ever done. One of the best Canadian movies ever done. Two Canadian detectives, one from Ontario, the other from Quebec, must work together when a murdered victim is found on the Ontario-Quebec border. that is one of the best Canadian-based movies you could watch with Patrick Huard and Colm Fiore. That's actually a really good movie.
Okay.
I can't speak for the sequel, but Bone Cop, Bad Cop is objectively a really good movie. What about from Maddie, The Prestige?
The Prestige is about a local bowling champion who is the toast of his small town because he bowls the best games every Tuesday and Thursday night down at the local Bowlerama.
What the hell was that?
And this person has to live with the prestige that comes with being the local bowling champion.
After a tragic accident, two stage magicians in the 1890s London engage in a battle to create the ultimate illusion while sacrificing everything they have to outwit each other.
I was close.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Okay. Do I want to mention a Marvel movie for this one? Why the hell not? From M.W. Bauer, Black Panther. I really want to know where the hell you're going to go with this one.
I mean, I've heard of Black Panther. I literally don't know what it's about. I've got no idea.
Well, just give it a give it a go. Give it a go.
It's a story about a bank robber that works in the night and is undetected as he goes about his business wearing a Black Panther suit. This is so bad, man.
T'Challa, heir to the hidden but advanced kingdom of Wakanda, must step forward to lead his people into a new future and must confront a challenger from his country's past. Oh my God. He's a bank robber for the Black.
And he's just working discreetly in the night.
No, he's not. Okay. All right.
Let's get to the end of this.
Okay, two more. We'll take one from Dallas Stars fan, Baby Driver.
Oh, is that a movie? Baby Driver?
Baby Driver is a movie.
How could, like, it's about a chauffeur whose job is to drive a baby around, but he can never go less than 50 kilometers an hour or else his car will explode. And he has to find a way to protect this baby and keep driving safely.
After being coerced into working for a crime boss, a young getaway driver finds himself taking part in a heist doomed to fail. You were onto something with the chauffeur.
I was getting there.
You were getting there. You were getting there. It wasn't that far off. It's just the baby thing was weird. I'll get to one last one from Robert Malloy. Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, I actually saw that movie.
Oh,
about 102 years ago when it was released. Is it about a couple that hooks up online in an online chat because one of them can't sleep in Seattle?
The description says a recently widowed man's son calls a radio talk show in an attempt to find his father a partner.
Okay. I just remember it was old. Like it was like from like ICQ days kind of thing.
What's ICQ?
It was a messaging platform back in the day.
Is that how you got down? You was writing.
But it's like how people stayed in touch with their friends.
You was hitting up future Miss Chris Johnston on ICQ. Is that what you was doing? You was writing you up.
I wish I remember what year this, like ICQ was like high school or something, maybe even before for me. But it was like a chat platform. Anyway.
Oh man. Well, I still can't believe the Black Panther one. I expected disaster, and you gave me disaster. So thank you so much for doing that.
I mean, the beauty or not of this segment is I'm not trying to be bad, but I'm just going to be bad. It would be like asking someone who doesn't know the rules of hockey to like explain what interference is or something. And like someone who's never seen a hockey game, like how could you ever? Yeah, I'm not trying to be bad is the point. I just don't know anything.
That's the dude. It's okay. But I'm glad we were able to do the movie game at least one last time because it objectively does bring joy to a lot of people. And it's not just for the sake of making you look dumb.
Well, I never mind making myself look dumb because I do a pretty good job on my own of that.
Thank you for being a good sport about the movie game. Thank you to everyone who has listened or consumed this podcast. And we will be back in 2023. A scheduling note for everybody. We did Wednesday and Friday this week. We will have episodes on Wednesday and Friday of next week as well. So be on the lookout for that. And don't be surprised if you don't see a new episode on the Monday. But before we officially wrap it up, Siege 2022 in the books. It's always an honor and a pleasure being able to be on this podcast with your name on the marquee. And I think we did a lot of great stuff this year. One thing we didn't even mention, we had an in-person episode this year, and that was also really good at the draft. That's among some of the best highlights
my
of
favorite
this
episode.
That could have easily been mine too, but like
I remember I was like getting waivers live on air.
Yes, you were. You were doing a radio hit like as the episode was ending.
I know, man. Crazy time.
It was a crazy time. But dude, I'm glad that we were able to get through this crazy time together over the podcast.
Yeah. Likewise. Thanks for your support, man. You and producer Nick are awesome. We had a great year. We're gonna have an even better year. Not just with the pod, but in general, I think in 2023. This is a time to be hopeful. That's what I was saying off the top. I hope everyone out there is safe. I don't even sure if I'll see midnight on New Year's Eve, if I'm being honest. Old man CJ. But I know Julian will be burning the midnight oil on behalf of the show. And enjoy the Winter Classic, producer Nick, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, the Flames and Canucks play on New Year's Eve, so I will be burning the midnight oil that night. Yes, producer Nick, shout out to you for everything you've done for this show in 2022. You deserve a lot of love and a lot of praise. And enjoy the Winter Classic. I'm sure it will be very, very fun. For Siege, I'm Julian. So long, Happy New Year, and we will see you in 2020.
The Chris Johnston Show.
Powered by Sports Interaction. Want to bet?
Inside the game, twice a week. Follow Chris on Twitter @ReporterChris. And follow Julian McKenzie @JKMcKenzie.
The Chris Johnston Show.